Picture this. Your own son looking you dead in the eye and telling you to leave his office because he's in the middle of something important. Now imagine the look on his face when his boss steps in and says, "Actually, she's the important client." That's exactly how it happened, right there in the Goldman Sachs building in downtown Chicago. My name is Ruth Miller. I'm 69 years old, and until that day, my son Rob thought I was just some sweet, clueless old lady who needed help balancing her checkbook. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, is that I'd been a VIP client at his firm for over 15 years, and my portfolio, let's just say it held more zeros than he'd see in a lifetime. The day he humiliated me at his own office was the day he finally learned who I really was. It all started on a cold Tuesday morning. I walked into that sleek Goldman Sachs lobby feeling like I didn't quite belong. Everything shimmered. Marble floors, sharp suits, that hush-hush air of importance. I'd been dreading this meeting for months, always finding some excuse to postpone it. But this time, I couldn't avoid it. As I neared the elevators, I spotted Rob laughing with a group of colleagues. He looked sharp in his navy suit, confident, like he owned the place. My stomach sank. This was exactly what I'd tried to avoid. Then he saw me, and just like that, the warmth drained from his face. No hi, Mom, no smile, just a scowl. "Mom," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "what are you doing here?" "I'm in the middle of something important. You need to go." He waved me off like I was some confused retiree who wandered into the wrong building. My cheeks flushed hot as a few heads turned. And then, as if scripted by fate, Charles Wilson, Rob's boss, walked over. He's a tall, silver-haired gentleman with calm eyes behind wire-framed glasses. "Rob," he said, looking confused. "She's the important client I'm meeting with." You could have heard a pin drop. Rob's jaw literally dropped. His coworkers glanced at each other, and I watched his entire posture deflate. "What?" he muttered now. "Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something. My son had no idea who he was working for. Because while he was out there bragging about compound interest and asset allocation, I'd been quietly building something behind the scenes. Something big. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name's Ruth Miller. I still live in the same modest ranch house in Oak Park, Illinois that my husband Frank and I bought over 3 decades ago. From the outside, I probably look like any other older woman living on a fixed income. I drive a 7-year-old Honda Civic. I clip coupons, shop grocery sales, and haven't redecorated the house since Bill Clinton was in office. My neighbors likely assume I'm living off Social Security and whatever pension Frank left behind, and that's exactly how I like it. Frank always used to say, "Ruth, if you want to keep your money, act like you don't have any." He wasn't wrong. Frank built a successful plumbing supply business from the ground up. When he passed away 8 years ago, he left everything to me. And instead of spending it on cruises or kitchen remodels, I opened a brokerage account. With Goldman Sachs, no less. Not because of the name, but because they had the resources and people to help me grow Frank's legacy. I did my homework. I read books, I studied market trends, and watched how the economy moved. Before long, I had a solid portfolio, diversified, well-balanced, and growing. 15 years later, that portfolio was worth over $8 million. And no one in my family had a clue, especially not Rob. Now, you may be wondering, Why keep that kind of success a secret from your own son? Because I know Rob. Even as a kid, he was obsessed with status. He always had to be the smartest one in the room. If he'd known I was wealthy, it would have fed his ego until he burst. So I played the role, the sweet, frugal mom just scraping by. I didn't want his pride to inflate even more. When his car broke down, I covered the repairs quietly. Let him think I was pinching pennies to help him. When he and Amanda struggled with the mortgage, I sent money anonymously through their bank. They thought it was some clerical error. I've been their invisible safety net this entire time. While they assumed I was the one who needed help, then everything changed 4 months ago. Rob called, practically shouting through the phone. "Mom, you won't believe it. I got the job at Goldman Sachs." He was thrilled, and I was proud. He'd always been ambitious, and this was a big deal for him. But what followed? That's when things started going downhill. Within the first week on the job, Rob began giving me lectures on how investment firms worked. He'd stop by for dinner and go on for hours about asset classes and inflation like I'd never heard the words before. "Mom, do you even understand compound interest?" he asked one night while spooning mashed potatoes onto his plate. I smiled and nodded, keeping my mouth shut. He had no idea he was talking to a woman who'd been compounding multi-million-dollar returns for years. I told myself it was harmless. He was excited. New job, big firm, let him feel smart, let him talk. What I didn't realize was that my silence would backfire in ways I never saw coming. By his second month at the firm, Rob's tone shifted from enthusiastic to patronizing. He stopped talking to me like his mother and started talking at me like I was his student. Every Sunday dinner became a lecture. Every conversation turned into a seminar on basic finance. "Mom, we really need to talk about your money," he said one evening, halfway through his pot roast like he was delivering a TED Talk. Amanda nodded eagerly across the table. "Rob's learning so much about investments. He says Goldman Sachs manages billions for the wealthiest clients." I could barely swallow my food. "Is that right?" I said politely. Yeah," Rob went on, chest puffed out. "Their clients are high net worth individuals with serious portfolios. They only take on people who really understand the markets." Amanda added, "It's probably hard for you to imagine that kind of wealth, Mom Miller." Her voice dripped with pity. The same woman I had helped keep in her home was now pitying me. "People your age," Rob continued, "don't realize how inflation eats away at savings, that little pension, and Social Security. Probably losing value by the year." I laid down my fork carefully. "And what would you suggest?" His eyes sparkled. "Well, I could maybe get you in with a junior advisor at Goldman. Someone who could help explain the basics to you. Nothing fancy." I nodded. "That's very thoughtful," Rob beamed. "It's the least I can do. I mean, money stuff can be confusing for folks who've never dealt with it." Amanda reached over and patted my hand like I was a sweet old dog. "We're lucky Rob's finally in a position to help." By month 3, the lectures were unbearable. He'd sit in Frank's old recliner like he owned it and say things like, "Mom, have you heard of diversification?" As if he'd just discovered fire. It means not putting all your money in one place. Meanwhile, I was folding laundry, thinking about my portfolio, diversified across U.S. and international stocks, bonds, real estate, and alternative assets. The one Charles Wilson and I had crafted like a fine recipe. "Fascinating," I said, He kept going. Index funds. Mom, they track the whole market. Great for people who don't know how to pick stocks. Every word felt like sandpaper. He was explaining to me, the woman who'd beat the market for over a decade, how not to lose money. But the worst part wasn't Rob's ignorance. It was Amanda. She started using Rob's job like a badge of authority. At Madison's birthday party, I overheard her whispering to another mom, "Rob's really stepping up to help his mother financially. She's been lost since Frank died. No clue how to manage things." Another woman murmured, "That must be hard." Amanda sighed. "He explains everything, but you know how older people are with numbers." I was 10 feet away, handing out slices of cake, listening to her paint me as senile while standing in the house I'd helped pay for. By month 4, Rob was treating me like his financial dependent. "Mom," he said one Sunday, "I should really review your accounts, just to make sure everything's in order." Amanda chimed in. "It would give us all peace of mind to know your money's being handled properly." Someone your age, that phrased it like a brick. They didn't know the woman they were patronizing had built a multi-million-dollar portfolio while they struggled with their grocery bills. I smiled tightly. "I appreciate the offer." "Great," Rob said. "I'll bring some paperwork next week." That night, I stared at the photos on my mantel. Rob's college graduation, their wedding, I'd paid half. Christmas mornings, with gifts more expensive than their mortgage. I'd spent years protecting him from his own ego, and now he was trying to take control of my life. Because he thought I couldn't handle a bank account. The truth was, every time he explained something like compound interest or asset allocation, I had to bite my tongue, because I wasn't just familiar with those concepts, I'd mastered them. And yet, I let him go on. I thought I was being kind. I thought I was letting him feel smart, letting him grow into his new role. But what I didn't see coming was how quickly kindness can turn into a license for disrespect. Then came the moment that broke me. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I'd stopped by Rob and Amanda's house to drop off some groceries. They'd told me to just come in with the key. They were expecting me. But as I walked in, bags in hand, I heard Rob's voice from the living room. He was on the phone, laughing. "No, you don't get it," he was saying. "She thinks Goldman Sachs is like NASA." I froze in place. She gets all starry-eyed when I mention it, like I'm some kind of astronaut. He chuckled. "Yeah, she's completely clueless. Yesterday she asked what a mutual fund was. I had to explain it like she was in kindergarten. I stood there, groceries cutting into my arms, heart thudding in my chest. "Oh, it gets better," he kept going. "She keeps all her money in some savings account from the Stone Age. Probably earns 0.5% interest." I've been trying to explain inflation, but you know how old people are. Math just doesn't stick. I placed the grocery bags down as gently as I could, and then he said it. "She's so impressed with my job. I think she's going to let me manage her finances soon." Thank God. Someone's got to make sure she doesn't blow what little she has left. I backed away quietly, my hands trembling. Just before I reached the door, I heard one more thing. Amanda and I were talking. We think she might be slipping mentally, like early dementia or something. She just nods along when I talk, like she doesn't understand anything. Dementia. My son thought I had dementia, because I was gracious enough not to correct him when he was wrong. I made it to my car before the tears came, but the next event, that dinner, that was something I'll never forget. Rob had invited the family over. Kevin and Lisa came with their kids, Tyler and Madison. It was meant to celebrate Rob's 4-month work anniversary at Goldman Sachs. Amanda baked a cake. We were mid-dessert when she prompted him. "Honey, tell them what your supervisor said." Rob sat a little taller. "Well," he began, "they say I'm progressing quickly. They might even let me start managing client portfolios soon." "That's wonderful," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Actually," Rob continued, standing up like he was giving a boardroom presentation, "there's something important we need to discuss." The table grew quiet. "As you all know, Mom's been struggling financially since Dad passed," he said, like it was a universally acknowledged fact. "She's been trying to manage things on her own. But let's be honest, it's not working." My fork froze in midair. "I think it's time I step in and help her with proper financial planning." Amanda chimed in immediately. "Rob's learned so much. It'd be such a relief to know someone qualified is guiding her future." Kevin asked, "What are you proposing exactly?" Rob leaned back, fingers steepled like a CEO. "I think Mom should give me financial power of attorney. That way I can monitor her accounts, protect her from scams, and make informed decisions on her behalf." Silence. Lisa nodded. "That sounds responsible." "Exactly," Rob said. "Her generation just doesn't get modern finance. They think a savings account is enough." Tyler, bless his teenage heart, looked up from his phone. "Grandma, Dad could totally make you rich." Madison added, "Yeah, Grandma, you should let him help." I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't even breathe. Because this wasn't just ignorance anymore. This was betrayal, and it was only going to get worse. Amanda wasn't done piling on. She set down the dessert plates and turned to the table like she was addressing a support group. "The truth is, Mom Miller's been different since Frank passed," she said. "It's like she's just given up trying to understand how the world works." Rob nodded, solemn like a doctor delivering a diagnosis. "It's actually common," he said, "especially for women who didn't handle finances during their marriages. They shut down, stop learning, stop trying." Lisa added softly, "The important thing is that she has family who cares enough to step in before she makes a serious mistake." I excused myself and went to the bathroom, barely holding myself together. I stood at the sink staring at the face in the mirror, the face of a woman who had outperformed the market for over a decade. The face of a woman who had quietly grown millions of dollars into a fortress of financial independence. But they didn't see that. They didn't want to see it. When I returned to the table, Rob was passing out papers. "Mom," he said proudly, "I had our family lawyer draw up the basic documents. All you have to do is sign here, here, and here, and I can start managing your finances properly." He pushed the power of attorney forms toward me like he was offering a birthday gift. "Don't worry about the legalese," he said. "I'll walk you through it." I stared down at the stack of paper, the signature lines that would hand my financial life over to someone who thought I needed help defining a mutual fund. "I need time to think," I said softly. Rob frowned, confused. "Mom, there's really nothing to think about. This is for your protection." I straightened my back. "Your father and I never rushed into decisions. I don't intend to start now." Amanda's voice sharpened. "Frank's been gone 8 years. Mom Miller, you can't use him as an excuse forever." That cut deeper than anything she'd said all night. I repeated myself, "I just need a few days." Rob sighed like I was being difficult for sport. Fine, he said, but I really don't understand what you're waiting for. Do you seriously think you're better equipped to make financial decisions than someone working at Goldman Sachs? That was it. The spark of anger I'd been pushing down flickered to life. I'll let you know soon, I said, standing up and gathering my things. As I reached for my coat, I heard Amanda whisper to Lisa, I hope she doesn't wait too long. She's one mistake away from losing everything. I drove home in silence, their words rattling in my head like pennies in an empty jar. The papers sat in my purse like a live wire. I had just spent the evening being spoken about like I wasn't even there. Like I was some relic to be managed, all while they sat in a home I had helped them keep. That night, I picked up the phone and dialed Charles Wilson at home. Charles, I need to ask you something. Of course, Mrs. Miller. What's on your mind? In your professional opinion, I asked, how would you rate my financial decision-making ability? There was a long pause. Ruth, he said carefully, you're one of the most sophisticated clients I have. You understand markets better than most professionals. You could teach this stuff. I told him everything. The power of attorney, the lectures, the family dinners that had turned into interventions. When I finished, Charles was silent again. Ruth, he finally said, your son has been at Goldman Sachs for 4 months. You've been with us for 15 years. Your returns are among the highest we've seen. Anyone suggesting you need financial guardianship is completely out of touch. Still, doubt lingered. What if they're right? What if I'm fooling myself? Charles didn't miss a beat. You earned a 15% return last quarter by spotting a trend in emerging tech before most of our analysts even caught on. That's not luck, Ruth. That's skill. You're sharper than ever. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table, Rob's documents spread out in front of me. I realized I hadn't just created a monster. I'd nurtured him. By shielding him from the truth, I'd let him believe I was weak. But I wasn't ready to blow it all up, not yet. I still held out hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd come to his senses. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. The phone call that changed everything came the following Monday. I was still debating whether to confront Rob or simply return the unsigned documents. Mrs. Miller, Charles's voice came through the line, calm but urgent. We need to meet as soon as possible. What's going on? I asked. The Fed made a surprise rate move this morning. It's causing major shifts in the market. We need to reassess your portfolio allocations this week. My heart sank. I'd carefully scheduled every quarterly meeting to avoid Rob's hours. Now there was no getting around it. Can we do Saturday? I asked. I'll be in London starting Thursday, Charles replied. And with these market conditions, waiting that long could cost you hundreds of thousands. We really need to meet Tuesday or Wednesday. I closed my eyes. Tuesday at 10:30, I said quietly, perfect. And don't worry, Ruth, Charles added gently. I'll make sure the meeting is private. I spent that Monday in a state of silent panic. I'd worked so hard to keep my financial life and family life separate. Now those two worlds were on a collision course. That evening, Rob called. Hey, Mom, just checking in. Have you signed the paperwork yet? It's still on the counter, I said. You're putting this off longer than you should, he said, frustration creeping in. Amanda and I are both worried. These decisions are too complex for someone your age. What makes you think I can't handle them? Come on, Mom, he said. Yesterday, I mentioned tax loss harvesting. And you just blinked at me like it was a foreign language. I had blinked because I didn't know how to tell him I'd been using that exact strategy for 10 years. I'll let you know soon, I said again. Well, don't take too long, he replied. One mistake could wipe out your entire nest egg. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. I put on my navy suit, the one I'd worn to Frank's funeral, and headed downtown. My stomach twisted the whole way. Inside the Goldman Sachs lobby, everything gleamed with importance. Security waved me through, and the elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than usual. But I made it to Charles's office without running into Rob. We spent the next hour reviewing economic indicators, risk exposure, and sector rotations. I made decisions involving millions of dollars without flinching. Charles leaned back, nodding. Your instincts are still razor sharp, Ruth. That position you recommended last quarter, 22% return. I'd been watching the contracts out of Washington, I said. You could see the momentum building if you were paying attention. He smiled. That's exactly why you're one of our best clients. Just as we finished signing the documents, Charles glanced at his watch. Ruth, I need to step out for a few minutes. Urgent call from London. Will you be all right waiting here? Of course, I said. Take your time, he stood. I'll let my assistant know not to disturb us. You're in a VIP meeting. He walked out, and I leaned back in the chair, letting myself breathe. But then I heard voices in the hallway, male voices, getting closer. I recognized one immediately. So yeah, the client meeting went great, Rob was saying. I think I'm finally getting the hang of these complex accounts. You're progressing fast, another voice said. It shows. I looked around in a panic. No way to hide, no time to leave. I sat frozen as the office door opened. And there he was, my son, walking in mid-sentence. His face fell when he saw me. Mom, he said, stunned. What are you doing here? Before I could answer, he turned to his colleague. I'm so sorry about this. My mom sometimes gets confused. I'll take her out. His colleague blinked. This is your mother. Rob turned back to me. Mom, you can't just wander in here. This is a professional environment. I sat still, hands folded in my lap. Rob, I said calmly, I'm not here by accident. Then why are you sitting in Mr. Wilson's office? I'm his client. He laughed, a nervous, awkward sound. Mom, please, I'm working. You need to leave. And just then, Charles's voice came from the hallway. Mrs. Miller, sorry about that. Let's pick up where we left off. He stepped into the room and stopped cold when he saw Rob. Oh, Rob, Charles said. I didn't expect to see you up here. Rob jumped in immediately. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson. My mother somehow got past security. I was just escorting her out before she interrupted your important meeting. Charles tilted his head. Interrupted? Yes, sir, Rob said, fumbling. I know how busy you are with your VIP client. Charles looked him square in the eye. Rob, your mother is the VIP client. Rob froze. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I what? He finally stammered. Your mother, Charles said firmly, is the important client I've been meeting with for the past hour. His colleague's eyebrows shot up as he slowly turned toward me. She's one of our top clients, Charles continued. A VIP for over 15 years. The color drained from Rob's face. That can't be. Oh, but it is, Charles said, his tone sharp now. And I must say, I'm disappointed in how you just treated her, both as a client and as your mother. I watched Rob's world begin to unravel in real time. His colleague took a discreet step back, suddenly realizing this was not just a family squabble, this was a professional disaster. Rob turned to me, his voice barely above a whisper. Mom, I don't understand. You told me you needed help. I never said that. I replied evenly. You assumed. Charles looked between us, piecing together the whole picture. Rob, did you really not know about your mother's financial background? Rob shook his head slowly, confused and embarrassed. She clips coupons, drives a Honda, lives in a modest house. Charles nodded. Exactly. She chooses to live simply. That's not ignorance. It's smart wealth management. Rob's colleague let out a quiet, breathy chuckle of disbelief. But what about the power of attorney? Rob asked. I met his gaze. I was considering it, I said. Not because I needed you to manage anything, but because I was tired of fighting about it. Charles's face darkened. Power of attorney, he turned to Rob. You tried to obtain legal control of your mother's finances. Rob's voice cracked. I thought she needed help. She acted like she didn't know what compound interest was. Charles cut him off. She earned 22% on her tech positions last quarter. She saw trends that most analysts missed. Rob looked like the air had been punched out of him. That's impossible. Charles walked over to his desk, pulled out a file, and handed Rob a copy of my most recent portfolio performance. Here, he said, see for yourself. Rob's hands trembled as he took the report. I watched his eyes scan the numbers. The allocations, the returns, the total value. 8 million, he whispered. Give or take, Charles confirmed. She built that portfolio through years of study, discipline, and strategic execution. Rob sank into the nearest chair. I don't understand. You asked me to explain compound interest. I said, because I was trying to be polite while you explained things I already understood better than you. Charles nodded slowly. Rob, while you were bragging about diversification, your mother was managing a portfolio spread across 6 asset classes and a dozen countries. Rob buried his face in his hands. Oh God, what have I done? Charles cleared his throat. I think we need to have a conversation about your conduct here today. Rob looked up, panic in his eyes. My conduct? You dismissed a VIP client, your mother, in front of your colleague. You spoke to her with disrespect and condescension. That's unacceptable here. His colleague nodded in agreement. Mr. Wilson, I didn't know. That's the problem. Charles interrupted. You didn't ask. You assumed. You judged her based on her appearance and her age. And you acted on that judgment in a way that could damage both your reputation and the firm's. Rob looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. Mom, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. No, I said. You weren't trying to help. You were trying to take control, based on a story you made up in your head. He stared at the floor. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? Because I knew exactly how you'd react, and I wasn't wrong. Charles began gathering the documents we'd signed. Well, Mrs. Miller, he said, turning to me. Your adjustments will be executed by tomorrow morning. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Charles, I replied. It's been enlightening. I stood to leave. Rob looked up quickly. Mom, wait. What happens now? I said quietly. Now you deal with the consequences of treating me like I was incapable. You tried to strip me of control over my own life, while benefiting from the very wealth you thought I didn't understand." He flinched. Charles stepped forward. "Rob, I'll need to see you in my office first thing tomorrow." He turned to me. "I hope you have a peaceful afternoon, Mrs. Miller." As I walked toward the door, Rob called out, "Mom, please, can we talk about this at home?" I paused, then turned back. "For 4 months, you've treated me like I was fragile and confused. You told your family I was slipping. You handed me legal paperwork at dinner like I couldn't read. You just told your own mother to leave the building because you assumed I didn't belong." The office was silent. "I think we've talked enough for one day." Then I turned and walked away. As I stepped into the elevator, I felt lighter. Not because anything was fixed, but because the truth was finally out in the open. The web of assumptions and secrecy had snapped. And standing in the wreckage, I finally felt like myself again. By the time I reached the parking garage, my phone was already buzzing. Rob, then Amanda, then Tyler, then Rob again. I didn't answer. By the time I got home, I had 14 missed calls and half a dozen texts. "Mom, please call me back. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. Amanda wants to know if this changes anything about the family finances." That last message said it all. Even now, even after everything, their minds went straight to the money. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat in Frank's recliner, the one Rob always made himself at home in. I looked around the quiet living room filled with memories and secrets. This modest house had hidden an $8 million truth. And now, there was no going back. The old family dynamic, me playing small while they played expert, was gone. And good riddance, because for the first time in a long while, I wasn't pretending anymore. I was done nodding along, done letting their egos lead the conversation, done making myself smaller so they could feel big. Later that evening, my phone rang again. It was Charles. "Ruth," he said, "I just wanted to check in. I had no idea today would unfold like that." "You have nothing to apologize for, Charles," I said. "You've always treated me with respect." He was quiet for a moment. "How are you holding up?" I glanced at the documents, still sitting on my kitchen counter. The ones Rob had so confidently handed me, the ones I would never, ever sign. "I'm holding up just fine," I said. "For the first time in months, everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with. And for the first time in months, that was enough.